Hey everyone, and welcome back to Approved AF, the licensing podcast. I'm your host, Catalina Stepanov, and today we're diving into a very requested topic: the top 5 licensing mistakes that we see brokers make and how to fix them. If you're building or growing a mortgage business and you want to avoid expensive, time-wasting mistakes, this one is for you. All right, so jumping right into it, mistake number 1 is setting up your business wrong from formation. So, when you're forming a company, generally you're going to be doing it in the state in which you are currently residing. There are some instances where companies form in a different state due to uh, receiving some kind of tax benefits for that, but you have basically the 2 top options for forming a company are either going to be you form your company as an LLC or you form them as a corporation. Now, I would recommend talking to a tax professional or an accountant to kind of go through what the tax benefits are for your company and which one might be better aligned with your company's goals. There are other elements in that, but again, I would talk to a tax professional. They can kind of break that down a little bit more. You can figure out which one is in alignment with what you're hoping to do in your business. Uh, the other item that we often see is that people will choose a business name that will have a word in it that is a forbidden word. For example, we have experienced a lot of pushback from using the words federal, bank, anything that is similar to those. Trust and trusted often get a lot of pushback. So while it might be acceptable in your state where you're forming the company and you don't get an initial pushback, something to think about is if you grow and you're looking to expand into other states, will your name be an issue? Is it a very common name like Acme Mortgage where everybody's taking it and you're going to be running into issues as you're expanding into the business? That name is taken in other states, so you'll have to form under a different name and do business as a different name. And that can get tricky when you're looking at marketing and things like that. There's always a workaround to everything, but those are definitely things you'll want to keep in mind. Another very common mistake that we see are people that form their company on their own and then come to us. And the 2 items that we'll ask for off the bat are your formation documents. So your articles of formation and your EIN letter that you made with the IRS. We'll get those 2 documents and we'll see that they don't exactly match because the company legal entity name is Acme Mortgage LLC on the formation documents, but on the EIN with the IRS, it's just Acme Mortgage. The LLC is not included. Now, the IRS's website will tell you, like, you don't need a corporate qualifier, but through our experience, time and time again, we'll receive these 2 documents. We let the person know they don't match. We're going to still submit it to the NMLS, but most likely we're going to get a kickback. We always get a kickback. The NMLS will not accept it without the corporate qualifier on there. So people will have to go back to the IRS to get it amended. And that can be tricky. That can be frustrating. It's very time consuming. There's a lot of hassle with waiting on the phone for the IRS to answer. And I mean, who doesn't love dealing with the IRS? So to avoid all of that, we just recommend getting started on the right foot, researching your name, making sure that it's not already taken, that it is not including a word in there that could be potentially harmful as you grow your business, that it becomes a forbidden word in other states, and that your EIN letter matches the articles of formation so that they are in alignment. So that's a big kickoff from the start. you really want to make sure that you are choosing a legal name that does reflect your brand and vision. So if you would like to work with a licensing professional or somebody from the beginning, that can often be helpful as they can give you some guidance and, even submit those forms for you to make sure that there are no misspellings, that it includes a corporate qualifier, that the name's been researched, and things of that nature. In fact, one of the people that we just onboarded as a new client, and I'm not picking on him, I'm just using it as an example. He actually had a delay with even getting started because when he formed his company, he misspelled the company name. Simple, easy, one letter off, but that threw a monkey wrench in the situation. He had to then amend his Secretary of State filing. Once his Secretary of State filing was amended, he had to come back and redo his EIN. He gave us the 2 documents. He was so excited to get started, and his EIN did not have the corporate qualifier on it. Again, there was a delay in him getting it amended, and he was just so adamant in saying, I wish I had worked with you from the beginning. I wish I had just used your services from the initial kickoff so that I wasn't delayed. It was unfortunate. He's now in momentum, balls rolling for him, so we're happy. But yeah, it's not the first time and it won't be the last time that we see that. If we can get in front of the problem before it becomes a problem, that's fantastic. Mistake number 2 that we often see is companies thinking that every state is equal and that they all have the same rules. They don't. Every state is unique, and some will have a brick and mortar requirement. Some will require background checks for every individual who is part of the company as a owner or director or manager level. And there will be some companies that require you to have a qualified individual, and their requirements for the qualified individual will vary. Some will require audited financials, and some won't. Even things down to your business plan. Uh, all states do not accept a standardized business plan. Some states will require certain sections to be added to that business plan because those are what that state is looking for. So those things are simple fixes and things to be aware of prior to going into states. But to think I'm going to just jump into a expansion into 5 different states and think that they all have the same requirements, they don't. And things will vary even down to the financial aspects. Some states will require you to have a minimum financial net worth that you can never dip below. Other states are much more lenient. So we really suggest doing your research ahead of time before expanding into new states, or working, again, with a licensing professional that is going to do that research on your behalf, give you that guidance up front so you know what you're getting into prior to jumping in. We also suggest being very organized. If you're taking on an expansion project on your own or in-house, be very organized and very diligent with tracking those requirements, tracking the necessary steps, tracking those deadlines. That way nothing gets missed. Expanding into new states without doing your homework is like showing up to a test and not knowing the subject. So it's, you could only pick C on a multiple choice test so many times. Mistake number 3 that we often see people experiencing as they start growing as a company is that they start missing deadlines. They start missing reporting deadlines or annual requirements. So we've talked about companies that jump into a multi-state expansion. They often can miss a deadline because they have so many fires burning at one time. So many different states are requiring different things at different times, and so something can get missed. But the other aspect is once you do get licensed, there's maintenance that is required in order to keep things in good standing. So we see people miss the quarterly MCRs that are within the NMLS. We also see them missing the Secretary of State annual good standing or financial condition reports. Those things can jump up and creep up on people, even though they get reminders. But again, you got so many things going as a business owner. Those alerts just kind of float into a email address that no one is checking. It's a very risky game to play because missing those reports could result in receiving fines. It could result in receiving like a slap on the wrist by the regulators, or it could even result in potentially losing your license if you let things lapse for too long. So the assumption of once I'm licensed, I'm good to go, I just need to do the end of the year renewals does not work. So you need to make sure that you're staying in good standing with the Secretary of State and the NMLS, that you're doing your CE, that you're doing the filings for the reports. Our suggestion is that if you are, again, keeping this in-house, you build a compliance calendar and manage it that way, knowing all of those deadlines month by month and staying ahead of them. Don't wait to the last minute. A lot of times you can file your Secretary of State reports 90 days in advance. So automate your reminders, pop them into your email, pop them into your Google Calendars, designate a point person, whether it be in-house or out, that is managing and reminding you of those reports. Don't wait for the NMLS to send you a warning. Be proactive. Compliance does not stop after you get licensed. It is a living and breathing part of your business. All right, mistake number 4. And that is going to be not sponsoring your team correctly. So that's going to be 2 parts. First is the pre-onboarding portion of that. And so a lot of times we will see companies bringing on new team members, but they haven't actually verified that those people are properly licensed with the right licenses for the company. For example, we had a company on board a batch of team members, all of which had Texas licenses as an MLO, but they were the OCC license and not the SML license, which the company carried. So those OCC licenses were not in alignment. They didn't count because the company didn't hold the OCC license. So all of those guys had to start from scratch and do the education and apply for a brand new license under the SML for Texas. The other thing that we see a lot of companies run into is finding out that their new hire is ineligible for licensing due to low credit scores or criminal background. Like they have a blemish on their criminal record that is preventing them from being eligible for licensing. The other aspect of it is once somebody is onboarded onto your team, that the company isn't managing or following up with their MLOs, and they allow the licenses to go inactive or become expired. That'll require a whole batch of new training and a whole batch of new sponsorships and things like that just to get it back in a good standing, if possible, or they have to reapply, which just takes time and money away from both the MLO and the company and is what my husband calls NPT, not productive time. So making sure that you guys stay in front of your MLOs for training for both new hires and CE for your continuing education of already licensed MLOs, making sure that you stay in front of license deficiencies that pop up in the NMLS for the MLOs and the company, and making sure that you're staying on top of state-specific regulations. So verify the sponsorships regularly in the NMLS. Keep an eye on your NMLS account to make sure that things are staying compliant and in good standing. If a license item pops up, make sure that you're addressing it quickly to get it cleared if possible. When you're onboarding your loan officers, make sure that you guys have a strong compliance checklist prior to giving them a full offer letter, making sure that you're running that background check, that credit report, and verifying what licenses they already carry. Don't let a good hire turn into licensing liability. If they're not sponsored properly, they're not selling legally, period. So make sure everybody is staying compliant so it doesn't come back to bite you in the butt later on. All right, last but not least, mistake number 5, waiting too long to get the help that you need. A lot of companies that we see come to us have been trying to do everything themselves or keep everything in-house, thinking that that is going to give them peace of mind because they are trying to control every aspect of it, when in reality, not everybody is a licensing expert. And if you're not working in the NMLS day in and day out, things take you longer. We've also seen people bring somebody in-house to handle the licensing and compliance, thinking that they have the experience. And it's just not the case. Things end up getting worse and they miss deadlines. Things fall through the cracks. They come back to us with items that weren't there before. And we have to play a lot of cleanup for someone else's inexperience. So, again, it's not to diminish the efforts of other people or the efforts of trying to keep it in-house, because they're trying to be strategic with their dollars. But in reality, it's ended up costing them more time, more money, and they're paying fees to the states, and they've lost out on deals because they've let their licenses lapse. So trying to wing it is just not the best strategy. Know when to delegate, especially when it's compliance on the line. Invest in experts who have years of experience under their belt. Getting expert help early to avoid bigger problems later, and setting yourself up with a strong foundation is instrumental in the growth of business. Work with a team that understands your growth goals and how you do business. Licensing is one of those things where an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of correction. Your licenses are your livelihood and they matter. Licensing doesn't have to be hard, but it does need to be handled intentionally. So whether you're a brand new broker or scaling into multiple states, avoid these mistakes to save you both time and money. Release the stress and partner with somebody who, whether they're in-house or a licensing company, are going to make sure that they manage things efficiently and with great care and organization. If you need a partner to make it all run smoother, to avoid the chaos and level up successfully, obviously, Licensing Store is here to help. All right, if you took away a nugget of information from today's episode, please like and subscribe so you don't miss an upcoming episode. Head on over to licensingstore.com if you want help getting licensed, staying compliant, or growing without the chaos. Follow along at approvedaf_licensing on Instagram. Share this with somebody who might find this helpful. And don't forget to tune in next time, because every episode will get you one step closer to being approved AF.